Hey everyone, in today's video we're going to look at scales production for revision for the second year. So just a little recap on what we went through last year. So that was what one-off production was, what batch production, mass production were, what unit production systems means, what quick response manufacturing is, and then what vertical in-house production is as well. So one-off production, so this is where you had a very highly skilled company, typically one person, two people maybe. The whole benefit being that you've got a very skilled individual that you are constantly talking to as a client because you're getting exactly what you ordered. You've not gone to the shop and bought a generic thing, a generic piece of furniture, a generic dress, a generic whatever it may be. You've had that constant communication with the person making it, so you're getting it custom to you. Along with that, you're also getting specialist material or high quality material. So all of that results in a very nice but an expensive finished product because you are paying for one, their skills, two, the specialist equipment slash machinery, and three, their time. So that's what makes it more expensive. But arguably it's worth it because you've got a one off that is going to be high quality anyway. So they will always make sure it's going to be a high quality finished product. So depending on what they're making, they'll have good quality control in it. So they'll make sure they're using jigs, formers, whatever it may be, to make sure it's all done accurately. Uh, and it's all very specialist. So if I, for example, I'm going to go and get a wedding dress, you go to a wedding dress maker. If you're going to go to get a custom musical instrument made, you go and get a specialist that makes musical instruments. If you're going to get custom pieces of furniture, you go to a furniture maker. So you'd always go to those specialist people. Next is batch production. So this is where you've got the first introduction of a production line. So where a production line is where one person does one job and then passes it on down to the next person, then they do their job on it. So typically works with sort of semi-skilled because they need to be able to do a couple of different jobs. They can't just specialize in that one particular area. Sometimes they need to be able to swap between jobs depending on what's going on. That's called a flexible workforce. So production lines need to be able to be changed quickly so that they can make different products because they don't just make the same thing. So like newspapers, they don't make the same newspaper all year because the news changes every day. Same with like books, same with some clothing. They don't make the same t-shirts and dresses every day. They'll make batches of them, so it's making sure that they can change it up when they need to. Often individual parts are brought in. So if it's like a standardized piece, certain like bolts, screws, like things that are very generic, those will just be bought in because it's just easier than it is to make them in house. And then the production line will run for a certain amount of time, and then they'll just eventually scrap it and just make a brand new product when it reaches the end. So there's certain things that sort of expire. So things like sports clothing. So obviously when the season is on, they sell football, rugby shirts, whatever it is. Then now 8, 9 months later, they'll make a new shirt. So they won't constantly keep making it. Eventually, it will just run for a certain amount of time, and they'll just stop making it. So mass production, again, you've got a production line. So this is where, again, you'll still have the worker working on their particular area. They're a little bit less skilled than batch production because they tend to just specialize in their one area, so they can't do more than one job. Now, the cost of setting up production is incredibly high because you need to have a huge amount of space, so a huge factory or warehouse. You've then got custom machinery set up and installed to do the jobs you do. So it's a huge amount of setup to begin with, but then after a few years of being in production, it ends up becoming profitable. It's called economies of scale. So you spend a lot of time, effort, money to begin with, because you know in the long run you end up making money later. And again, they still do the same thing where they will buy in standardized parts to put into their assembly as well. So continuous production, pretty similar to mass production. Few key differences. One, it's a little bit more semi-automated, so there will be robots doing specific jobs, particularly if it's certain cars and car parts where humans can't lift up at certain angles because it's quite heavy. So robot arms will do it, and also it runs 24 hours a day, every day. Same as mass production, though, high level investment is really expensive. Limited training of staff because once it's set up, generally speaking, it doesn't really change unless there's like a major development. But if you think about like Coke bottles and things like that, they haven't really changed. So that machine has been set up for 15 years. That's a random number, by the way, not like an exact one. But that machine will set up. It'll be maintained and fixed if it's broken, but they won't have changed it, so no one's going to be trained on making anything different. And they do quality control at every stage. So what will happen? You say they're making 1,000 of them. Every 100, they'll take a selection of them and they'll just test them, check that it does what it needs to do. If it passes, the whole batch passes. If it doesn't, the whole batch needs to be passed away. So unit production systems. So this is primarily used in textiles. So you'll have your machinist sat at their machine doing their work, and then this transportation system will carry all the garments and things like that around to them while they're working. So sometimes it's manually operated, but a lot of the time it's just computer controlled, so you know you can get what you need when you need it. So it reduces the amount of people you need to like walk around, so it makes that easier and it makes it flow a lot better, makes the quality higher, and makes the production time faster. Quick response manufacturing. So the aim of quick response manufacturing is to keep the lead time as short as possible. So lead time is, say I put in an order for something for the work, they will then tell me, okay, they've not got it all made ready. They'll have all the parts for it, but they won't have the actual thing made. So I'll put an order in for, say, workbenches or a piece of machinery. They'll say, okay, lead time for that is 3 weeks, because then they can get all the parts, they can make it and then send it across to us. So quick response manufacturing should keep that lead time as short as possible. And then vertical in-house production. So we talked in the batch, mass, and continuous production where they will buy in standardized parts because it's easier in production. Vertical in-house production is where if you're doing such a big thing and doing so many of it, it might actually be viable to do it in-house. So they'll set up a supply chain inside the company, inside the factory, so that they don't need to do the outsourcing. So we're going to have a look at a few questions now. So these are a couple of long questions, so I'll go through the breakdown of it, then I want you to pause it and have a go at answering. Okay, so first one. So with reference to a product with which you are familiar, explain the different quality control, quality assurance procedures that will be suitable for each of the following production volumes. So one-off production and large-scale production, so making 100,000 units on an assembly line. So 28 marks. So first of all, we'll start at the top. First trick is to make sure you pick 2 products you know you can write about. Don't pick something and then you think, I don't know anything about it. So for one-off, you can pick your coursework product. That's absolutely fine. So that's the first challenge, is making sure you pick something you can talk about. So 28 marks to talk about 2 different things. So realistically, there's 14 marks for each. So 40 marks for one-off production, 14 marks for large-scale production. To break it down, marks, so 40 marks, so 7 points with an explanation to back it up. So really, you just have to 7 points for each one of those, as long as you can back yourself up with evidence as well. What I would do, I would start each one, so each one of production, large scale production, I'll start each one by giving a definition of what quality control and quality assurance is as well. So 28 marks, pause the video, you can leave this up and get your textbook and have a go answering that in 28 minutes. Okay, so this is sort of like a run through the sort of marking criteria it would give you. So it's got give a definition of what quality control, quality assurance is. So it's about making sure that procedures are put in place to ensure products are made to the right standard on time, it's done accurately. Examples of quality assurance could be CAD simulations, use of jigs, set of automated machinery. Quality control checks would be measuring gauges, checking samples, checking batches, checking they're okay. So then you're expected to refer to QA and QC throughout it. And then just make sure that you understand how it relates to the product. So just make sure, obviously, if you're doing the big batch one and you chose, say, for example, cars, and then you chose like a piece of furniture as the one-off one, don't mix them up and don't do ones that would be used in the one-off one because it's one person doing a job so they can spend that time. That obviously isn't feasible if you are doing say 100,000. So it's just the trick is just making sure you are using appropriate parts. So next question, the selection of materials and processes for the manufacture of products varies according to the quantity of the product required. For 2 of the following scales of production, explain what materials and processes could have been used in the manufacture of the product you have named. So one-off production, batch production, mass production. So again, 28 marks. So again, the first trick is to make sure you pick 2 products right? So it tells you there's two. So it's giving you there's three areas you can look at, but you're only doing two. So make sure you pick two. So one that is one-off produced, one that's batch produced, one that's mass produced. Just make sure it's something you can write about. Again, you can use your coursework project if you want. And same breakdown as before, 28 marks for two things gets you 40 marks each. Break that down again, so you're after 7 points with an explanation. So it tells you what it wants you to write about. So you've got 7 points to bring up, okay? So you need to talk about the materials and the processes. So you've got to make sure you can name specific materials, not just woods, metals, plastics. You'd have to say, talking about, like, say, a sink, you've got to say it's like stainless steel. Okay, you have to be more specific. So you need to talk about their properties and then why they're suitable. So you think about the 7 points. So you naming the materials, you get your mark, and then back it up with evidence. Naming the properties, give you another 2 marks, and then back it up with evidence. So we've still got another 4 marks to try and get. So then you talk about the manufacturing process. So that will take up the rest of the marks. And then you say why that's appropriate as well. You could use diagrams in the manufacturing process and label your diagrams. That would be a really good way of doing it because it's easier to do the manufacturing process diagram and then annotate as you go around. So 28 marks, pause the video, use a textbook, have a go answering, and then we'll go through the mark scheme. Okay, so examples. So one-off products, so bespoke handmade furniture, dining table, so like hardwood, teak, oil, oaks, something like that. So the fact that you've got things like individual nice grains, really good quality. So you talk about how that will be made. So that will be like limited machinery, so it'll be made by hand, be crafted, and then high cost. Batch product, maybe similar. So it could be furniture, but it's not going to be a one-off. It could be uh, like office furniture, like small chain outlets and things like that. And then volume 100,000. So anything that could be, say, for example, done CAM or CNC, anything that could be injection molded or blow molded, anything like that. So again, like with both those questions, the key trick is making sure you pick the correct product to talk about, and then you understand the process. If you've got any questions, send me a message on either Teams or on my email, and I'll get back.